Adventure into Fear issue 19 from December of 1973 was the first appearance of Howard the Duck in Marvel Comics. Originally, Howard was supposed to be a secondary character to Man-Thing within the Adventure into Fear line of comics. But due to his blunt commentary to situations in the comic, as well as the different type of appeal that the character had, Marvel decided to give the character his own comic book title with Howard the Duck Volume 1, Issue 1 in 1976. The character's popularity slowly began to increase to the extent that in 1977, the Walt Disney Company contacted Marvel over the visual design details of Howard and complained that it was too similar to their own visual designs with relation to Donald Duck. Not wanting to get into a legal dispute with Disney over the character, if they were right or wrong with the exact details, Marvel agreed to an artistic redesign of the character by Disney artists. One of the key details in the redesign was to be that Howard would wear trousers. A small detail, but something that Disney thought important to differentiate between Donald and Howard. Due to the increasing appeal with Howard with comic book fans and Marvel realizing that they could expand the character into possible media and film, first considered putting Howard the Duck into media in 1980. Upon learning of the plans by Marvel to license Howard the Duck in this sort of medium, Steve Gerber, the writer who created the character in 1976, filed a copyright infringement lawsuit against Marvel, alleging that he was the sole owner of the character, and if anything were to occur with the comic book character of Howard the Duck, he'd need to be consulted with prior to anything being implemented. This was one of the first examples of a writer attempting to use legal means to assert their ownership or control over their printed creation. The legal situation with Steve Gerber actually attracted widespread attention domestically within the United States at the time, and gained the support of other comic book writers and artists, notably Jack Kirby. In 1982, Steve Gerber acknowledged that the work of Howard the Duck wasn't his own, and Marvel owned all rights to the character. Due in part to the media attention focused on Howard the Duck, the only news story to feature the character from the mid-1980s was Bizarre Adventures issue 34 from 1983. But with all of the media focus on the character in 1986, on the 1st of August of that year, produced by Lucasfilm, Howard the Duck was released in United States cinemas. From the information now known, George Lucas was approached by developmental forces for the film on seeing the comics written by Steve Gerber. He believed that a successful film adaptation could be put into a possible franchise. At the time, development for the project changed during the filming phases, and when finally released, it was considered to be one of the worst films ever made. But in more recent times, the film has been looked at and reappraised and reviewed at a slightly more positive reception due to the performance of Leah Thompson on the fringe aspects or details of the film. Due to the horrible fallout from the film, Howard the Duck appeared in few comic publications from Marvel throughout the mid-1980s and into the early 1990s. But from the mid-1990s there was a slow resurgence of Howard the Duck as a character, but nothing in terms of popularity or appeal matching what had occurred with the character from the mid-1970s to the early 1980s. In 2014, Howard the Duck made a cameo appearance in Guardians of the Galaxy with a voiceover by Seth Green. This was the first appearance of Howard the Duck in film since the 1986 feature. Howard appeared once again in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 released in 2017. Originally, Howard was supposed to have a cameo appearance in Avengers Infinity War, but the appearance was later removed. In 2019, Howard appeared again in the final battle of Avengers Endgame. Due to these appearances in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, there has been a new focus on the character, and perhaps finally the character of Howard the Duck can have new comics written for him, new appearances in media, and a new respect from comic readers of a whole new generation. Sometimes a character can be forgotten because they were viewed as an imitation of another, had poor media exposure, and only got the chance to be something new decades later.